Welcome to Biology Made Easy. In this lesson, we are explaining ecosystem patterns. There are various terms that we will meet if we are explaining ecosystem patterns. And the terms will meet species, population, population density, and pattern. So what is a species? A species is individuals. They look similar, like these individuals look similar. They form a species, provided these individuals do not only look similar, but they can breed. They can breed and form another individual which is fertile. So that's a species. So this is one species, individuals looking alike. They can interbreed to form fertile offspring. So this one species. This is also another species, and this is another species. Now, what about population? Population is the total number of individuals of a particular species. So I have this individual, this. They form a species. The population is the total of all this in this area at a particular time. That forms the total. So you can count all of them in this area at a particular time. That's the population. So we have population of this one, population of this one, these ones, and population of these ones. What about population density? Well, if we decide that this area, for instance, is 1 meter square, a unit area, we can say 1 meter square. If we are talking about population density, then we can say that the number of this particular species in a unit area is the population density. So we have 1 unit area here, and if we are looking at this particular species, then if you count the number, the total in this unit area, that forms the population density. What about the term pattern? Pattern is the regular way something happens. So we are going to define now ecosystem pattern. It's the same as dispersion pattern or distribution pattern of population. How these populations are distributed. So the definition, we can have dispersion or distribution or arrangement of individuals of the same species in a habitat or ecosystem that forms physical pattern in the habitat. This forms a physical pattern. We can also say it's the same as density and distribution of species, how dense this is and its distribution, density and distribution of species in a habitat or ecosystem that forms a physical pattern in the habitat or ecosystem. Take note that if you need to talk about ecosystem patterns, don't say that is a distribution or dispersion or arrangement of organisms or individuals without leaving a species or without referring to population. You see, density talks about species numbers in a space, all right? So if you don't talk about species and you say arrangement of individuals, all these are individuals. The arrangement, if you talk about these individuals without talking about the species, how? So take note of this, right? Now, the question is also why ecosystem patterns form, right? Simply is due to the interaction of the organisms. They are interacting with each other and also with the physical environment, like the soil type, water, etc. So biotic interactions, abiotic interactions, and the two interactions will produce these patterns. Types of ecosystem patterns. We have general pattern, and there are 3 types: uniform, random, we discussed, and clumped, most common. Then we have zonation patterns. And what is zonation? Well, zonation is clear-cut areas, can have a clear-cut areas or segments that have unique features. For instance, this area, if I say this is an ecosystem, you can see that these species of organisms is clearly different from here. So we can have a clear-cut area. This is one area, this is one area, this one area. So this shows zonation, clear-cut areas or segments And in each of the segments, there are peculiar species of organisms in each of the segments. And these clear-cut segments also due to physical conditions like amount of rainfall that gets there, the rate of running water, etc. And so that is zonation. And if we want to define a zonation pattern, we can say pattern of distribution of species that show clear-cut areas or segments where each segment or area bear unique species with unique abiotic factors or physical conditions, and so present these clear-cut pattern in the ecosystem or habitat. So this is zonation, and it shows a clear-cut pattern with various unique species dominant in each clear area. So we also want to look at types of zonation patterns. This is a horizontal slope. Maybe the slope is too much, it could have been just slightly tipping. So we have horizontal. That is one type of zonation pattern, horizontal gradient or slope. Example is at the tidal zones of marine habitats, at the tidal zone where water goes out and comes in. You have corals and other organisms that show zonation. So we have also vertical gradient dimension. Here we have horizontal gradient. Vertical gradient will be this. This is horizontal, this is vertical. So vertical gradient dimension, example is zonation pattern of forest trees. We'll talk about it very soon. And another example is altitudinal zonation pattern of mountain slopes. You see that zonation is also like stratification. Stratification is dividing something into layers or groups. So if we look at the vertical gradient dimension, which gives us zonation pattern of forest trees, I have this rainforest diagram here. We have very tall trees that shoot above all the other trees. They are emergence. And then we have trees that have huge branch or canopies, broad. We have this trees with these huge canopies forming upper layer of trees. And then we have trees with conical shaped branches formed like here. These ones, they form middle layer of trees. And then you have this layer as shrubs. And then we have ground flora of mosses, ferns, etc. Now, so one can easily see that if we are looking at the vertical gradient, we can see mosses, very tiny flora at the ground. Then you have a layer of shrubs, layer of middle trees with conical shaped branches formed, upper layer of these broad canopies, and then emergence that are shoot up beyond all the other trees. This shows zonation. It also shows stratification. And it's not only the plants, the flora, the fauna. The fauna is the animals. This also shows stratification. You can have worms and slugs in this area. You can have tree frogs here. There's very little wind, and so you can have some ants. You can have a few butterflies here. As you go up, the wind conditions increases. You can have birds that can fight the wind speed. So there's stratification or zonation of fauna too. So once there's a vertical dimension or horizontal gradient, there will be zonation. And if we come to altitudinal zonation patterns on mountains, you can imagine that the mountain slope, there can be forest trees here. You can have very little plants growing in here, and even here can be ice and different layers or areas of flora and fauna. And that is what will give us altitudinal zonation, altitude high. And that is also vertical. So this brings us to the end of our lesson on ecosystem patterns. In our next lesson, we'll look into a bit of detail why these ecosystem patterns form. So if this lesson has been useful, please give us your likes and kindly subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.